Welcome to Berg Knifemaking.com. Today we're going to take a look at full flat bevel grinding using the tilt table bevel grinding jig. Now full flat bevels are pretty simple. They're fairly easy to do. It's a great place to start if you're a beginner knife maker. I've been asked by a couple of people how I actually use the tilt table in order to generate these. And I start as I always do, by scribing center lines on the blank. And in this case, I also used a file to create the coil notch. So this is the tilt table. This is a bevel grinding jig that Jason Northgard and I designed. It mounts up to most 2x72 grinders. It actually attaches to a standard 1.5-inch tooling arm. So what I do is I just set the angle by eye, and I use a scrap piece of wood. I use the same Scribe Tool that I used on the edge of the blank to scribe the center line on a piece of wood, matching depth center line. And then I grind a bevel on the wood, and I compare it to the knife, and I see if the bevel is wide enough. When doing a full flat, what I'm really doing is just establishing the bevel on the blank. And I want that bevel to be as wide as possible without, without being too wide. You just want it to just fall short, coming all the way through to the other side. Now the process starts basically just like grinding almost any other bevel on the tilt table. You hold the blank flat against the table, bring it up and into contact with the belt. For rough grinding, I always use a coarse grit belt. On a small knife like this, I use a 60 grit. On a larger knife, I'll use a 36 grit to really, hog away that material quickly. But on a small blade like this, 60 grit is fine. This is a AEBL stainless. This is one of our universal stainless blanks. And all I'm doing is I'm watching those scribed lines, and I'm making sure that I don't grind, into or past either one of those railroad track parallel scribed lines. Notice I'm not actually pulling straight across as many would think. I'm following the scribed lines so that I get a uniform thickness along the edge, and then later I'll straighten out the bevel. So it takes me a few minutes, a few passes, and this really establishes nicely the primary bevel. And make sure you watch through to the end of this particular video. I've got a new segment that I'm going to try to add on to a lot of these videos, which is tips and tricks of the trade. As you can see, with each pass, I'm getting a little bit closer to the spine. Going to get a little bit closer before heat treating. Now this is all the rough bevel grinding right now. This is just hogging away the majority of the material. Then I'll put these knives through heat treating, stainless steel knives, so they get wrapped in a stainless tool wrap. They'll get heat treated in a heat treating oven. You can see that I've got a little bit of space there between, right at the top of the bevel, there's still a little bit of space. So now this goes into heat treating. So again, I said heat treating oven, it'll get sub-zero quenched, it'll go into the tempering, and then afterwards I'll clean it up. I'm using a surface grinding attachment on my Origin Blade Maker 2x72 just to flatten, make sure that the handle area is flat. And now I'm going to finish the flat bevels. So I used a 60 grit prior to heat treating. Now I'm going to get rid of the tilt table, and I'm going to finish these flat bevels by hand. And all I'm doing is with an 80 grit paper, I'm holding that blade bevel, the established bevel, flat against the flat platen and pulling straight across. And then I'm taking a look at the grind lines, and you can see that right up top, I still need to come in a little bit more to make it flush. So I'm just going to put a little bit of pressure up top. It really only should take a few passes. And this is really made kind of easy because you've established that primary bevel using the tilt table. So that the bevels on both sides of the blank are very, very flat and very consistent. Now, I have never been good at freehand grinding. I don't have steady hands. But the fact that you can use that established bevel makes all the difference in the world. The next step is to use a finer belt. So this is now a 120 grit belt, but it's not a standard belt. I have a felt backed belt, which gives that belt a little bit of cushion so that it is more prone to even out any little discrepancies you had in the flat bevel. So using a felt belt, really comes in handy, especially, when freehand grinding or finishing a freehand grind. Now you can do this final pass either bevel up or bevel down. Just really depends on what you're comfortable with. You can let that belt hang over either side of the platen. And smooth out the actual plunge line. So this is now beveled down. And you can go through a variety of grits. I did 120, but you could go 400, 800. You could actually go right to a mirror polish if you wanted to. So that's basically the full flat bevel. This is the finished knife from that blank. And again, I mentioned these are our standard universal stainless blanks. This one has a hybrid scales, which is African walnut and a lighter wood. So anyway, tricks of the trade. This is a new segment which I'm trying to add, and we're going to talk about pins, handle pins. I use an oversized drill bit when drilling out for the pins. My friend Steve Graham told me about this when I first started. So for a 1/4 inch pin, I'm going to actually use a size F drill bit. That makes all the difference in the world. It makes the pins go in very easily, and you have a nice consistent pull. For a close fit, you can use one size over, which 1/4 inch is a size F. 1/8 inch, I think, is a number 30. The other trick that you can do, of course, I am not very well, but if you use a little bit of nail polish on the common size drill bits that we use, I really only use 2 common size drill bits, the size F, 1/4 inch, and the number 30 is for the 1/8 inch. Put a little bit of nail polish on that, and then that color really highlights those bits. So even in a very disorganized shop like mine, it's easy for me to find those drill bits. The third tip is to use pre-cut stainless steel pins. I'm a big fan of stainless steel. They don't scratch as easy or tarnish like brass do. They're a little bit harder to work with, but the end result is so much better. I get the pre-cut ones to either 1 inch or 1.25 inches long. They come pre-beveled. You don't have to cut them down to size. You're not burning your fingers trying to use a bandsaw or a grinding wheel. And they really make the whole process of putting the final knife together easier. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to this YouTube channel. By all means, join us on our Facebook group, Knives and Knife Making. And please check out the book, Introduction to Knife Making, that Jason and I put out last year. That's available either on bergknifemaking.com or you can find it on amazon.com. Thank you very much.